Hey guys, Nate here. Today I want to talk to you about the limitations that may happen after a hard, high intent throwing session. So for instance, if you're on the mound that day and you just started in a game, you're going to lose some range of motion and some mobility and maybe a little bit of control with your body as you throw that high intense game. So typically when I'm looking at somebody, I have about 7 things that I want to check for a pitcher that they tend to lose after that high intensity game. So whether it's a soft tissue restriction or a joint mobility restriction, or maybe they just lose how to control their body. But there's typically 7 things that go out on a pitcher, but not all pitchers will lose all of these things. So I want to make sure that I want to check all of these items to make sure that the pitcher is getting what they need. So the 7 things that I look at are going to be shoulder flexion, shoulder external rotation, shoulder internal rotation, thorax rotation, hip internal rotation, single leg stance, and then also ankle dorsiflexion. So, like I said, some of these may be due to soft tissue, maybe some due to joint, maybe some other issue going on, but I definitely want to hit these. So, if you're a pitcher and you just got off the mound, a few things that I'm looking at. So, for instance, shoulder flexion. Big thing that comes from this. Research shows if you're missing about 5 degrees of shoulder flexion from the other side, that increases your chance of injury pitching on the mound again by about 2.5 over the length of a season. So 2.5 times more likely to get hurt throughout the season if you're missing about 5 degrees of shoulder flexion. Where this comes in, when you're throwing and you try to essentially get on top of the ball, if you don't have this full flexion there, then you're gonna have issues and you're gonna start getting a lateral lean. So how I look at this, how you can kind of look to see if you're missing this, you can lay on the table and lay on the ground, and you can kind of bring your knees up to your chest. So you get about hips 90 degrees, bring your arms up to 90 degrees, and just see if you can bring your arms back so that they lay flush on the ground. If you notice that your throwing arm is up a little bit from the table or the ground, and your other side's not, that's a good indication that you're losing some of that shoulder flexion while you're throwing. So a good thing to do is going to be to restore that after you throw. Shoulder external rotation and shoulder internal rotation. So external rotation is the one where you're bringing it back here. So think about your layback when you're throwing and you get that shoulder, that hand way back. That's external rotation. A lot of guys, after they're done throwing, will lose the ability to control that. So how I look at that is you're going to be lay on the table, and you're just going to lay flat, head flat, and you're going to reach your arm up. You should get, as a thrower, you should get above 90 degrees. So you notice my hand is flush with the ground, parallel with the ground. You should be able to get a little bit more without compensating. And then a big thing that you're going to notice, this one is going to be one that loses a lot of motor control with it. So if I was treating somebody, I would give a little extra pressure when they're laying down to let that arm, to see if I can move that hand up a little bit farther. So if you're here and I'm here, I'm just going to lift up just a little bit to see if I can gain a little extra motion on that. So as a clinician, what I'm looking for as a player, I want them to get about 110 to 115 degrees of motion, maybe a little bit more on that. But I'm looking at it kind of compared to the other side. So that in isolation of looking from external rotation to external rotation on the other side does not do too much for me, because I have to check internal rotation and compare it to. So internal rotation, if I'm looking at it from here, is this rotation here. Where that comes in as a pitcher, when you throw and your decel across your body, if you're looking straight ahead, you're coming here and you're rotating your body, your shoulder internally rotating. So that's the deceleration, your ability to stop your arm from continuing its motion. So how well can you stop your shoulder from moving, which is important for injury reduction. So how I look at that is pretty well the same way as external rotation. So I'm going to lay on the table, arm to the side, and I'm going to bring it upwards. So for here, since we're looking at a little bit more than 90 degrees in external rotation, internal rotation is going to be a little less than 60 degrees. So what I'm looking for here is probably a little bit closer to 45, 50 degrees. But the big thing that you're looking for is going to be external rotation and internal rotation together should add up to be about 160 to 180. But the biggest thing that we need to look for is the symmetry from side to side. So if I have 160 degrees of external plus internal on the right side, my left side should have 160 degrees from external rotation and internal rotation as well. So there's also been some research across the season as if there's a 5-degree difference from the total arc there, then you're also about 2.5 times more likely to get injured. So the total arc is what we're going to be looking for. Thorax rotation. So how well does your upper back rotate? So how do I look at this? I want to make sure that there's no lumbar rotation while I'm looking at it. So what I'm going to have you do is get on your hands and knees, sit back on your heels, and go elbows in between your knees, one arm behind your back, and then you're going to rotate up. You should get, as a normal population, you should get about 50 degrees. However, for baseball players, you're doing a lot of rotation. So if you're watching yourself throw, you're coming here, your hips come forward, and even as that hips come forward, that's that rotation from the upper back. And then on the decel, you're coming through that front leg again. So actually, baseball players should get closer to be about 60 degrees or 70 degrees of that upper back rotation. If they're limited in that, if they're under 60 degrees, I'm looking to restore that. Again, this can be several different issues. It could be obliques, it could be ribs, it could be your pec getting tight after your throw. It just depends on your body type and what you respond to and what you need as a player to regain that motion. Hip internal rotation. Most of the time I'm looking at the lead leg here. So as a pitcher, if I'm right-handed, now I'm going to take a step here and then come forward. What happens at my hips is they're gonna crash down. That's going to be internal rotation or rotation of that front hip, and that's your ability to stop the rest of your body. If you're limited here, it's not giving your body enough time to stop, and then the rest of your body up the chain from your hips is going to have to decel or stop quicker than it's intended to. And that's when you can have shoulder issues, which is not the shoulder muscles and the elbow muscles are not as big, not as strong, not as durable as these hip muscles to be able to stop a very high velocity movement, especially rotational for a pitcher. So hip internal rotation on the lead leg is very crucial. So how do I look at that? I'm going to have somebody sit down, bring their knees to their fist right here in front of them, and then I want to rotate out. From here, typically what I'm looking for is about 35 degrees on a normal population, but for a pitcher, they're rotating a lot. They're rotating at a very high speed. So what I'm really looking for is more about 40 to 45 degrees. Now, one big thing here, don't allow that hip to spike up when you're looking at it, and have somebody actually put a measurement on that to see if you're losing that after each throw. The next one that we look at is ankle dorsiflexion, which is the ability for your knee to go over your shin or go over your foot. So how do I look at it? So when I'm going down, I'm going to have somebody go down on one knee, and then this knee is going to go over the foot. So I'm just going to bring that knee over the foot. What I'm looking for is about 40 degrees, and you should be within 5 degrees on each side. So if my right side's 40 degrees, my left side should be 40 degrees. If my right side's 45 degrees, my left side should be 40 to 45 degrees as well. It should be within 5. So how you can do it yourself is if you have a phone, you can have a clinometer or the Measure app on there, and you can put that phone on your shin, and then just kind of lean forward and look to see what kind of angle you get at it. So it's really the shin angle compared to the ground. But if you keep your foot flat, it's still going to be the shin against your foot. So how I do it is I'm usually standing to the side, and I have my phone right here, looking to see how far they can go forward. So again, I'm looking at about 40 to 45 degrees on that, and within 5 degrees on each side. Single leg stance. This is another one that's big, that pitchers tend to lose when they're throwing. Two reasons. Back leg. You got the single leg stance before you load and throw, but then the other one that gets forgotten about is that front leg absorbs a bunch of that force that you just made. So you're going to pull off that back leg and land on that front leg. So that front leg's got to be pretty stable when you land on it too. So there's been some research that shows too, if you're different from side to side, there's an increased chance of UCL injuries and elbow injuries. So if you're limited in that after you're throwing, we're going to want to make sure that we restore that as well. How I check that is through an anterior reach on a motor control screen or a Y balance. So what I have a player do is I can objectify this, so I can see how well I can put a number to how well they're able to stand on one leg. I'm just going to go toe back here and have them push a board as far as they can. From here, I can do both sides and get a few measurements and see if you're losing any from outing to outing, or if you have an asymmetry from side to side. So those are the 7 things that I look at to see on a pitcher consistently, to see if they're losing any mobility or if they're losing any control while they're pitching after their outing. What my job is once I notice something's limiting, is to restore that from a pitcher and get them on a plan to restore that. If you're interested in finding out more on this, I'm going to go through a series over the next few weeks to demonstrate how you yourself can kind of improve on some of these qualities. So if you like what you see here, continue to follow along, and you'll get some good information on how you can do this yourself. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.